Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm bringing you a review for the new Transformers Shattered Glass Megatron. This is technically the third figure released here in the States, even though it was actually meant to be the second one. It's following after Blur and Goldbug, though I think, in all likelihood, this review will be released first just because I'm most excited to review this guy. And that's because this toy is very interesting because, like all of the other Shattered Glass toys released in the subline, he is a redeco or a retool of an existing War for Seibertron or Studio Series 86 figure. But in this case, he's not just a recolor of Siege Megatron. He comes with some new parts that drastically alter his alt mode and change it from a tank to a spaceship in homage to the original Shattered Glass Megatron toy. Now, fear not, if you like the tank mode, it is still perfectly possible to create that. He comes with all the same accessories as a Siege toy, so he's a pretty good value coming with 3 extra parts. So I'm looking forward to opening this up and learning the new transformation for his secondary alt mode, playing around and seeing, how well part storage works with all the added accessories, and giving you guys my thoughts on this toy. So, if you've seen my reviews before, you know this goes. We're going to take a look at Megatron's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions. We're also going to look at the comic before opening this, because like the other Shattered Glass toys, he does come with a special exclusive cover comic of the Shattered Glass series. Then we're going to look at Megatron himself in his 2 alt modes and robot mode. Naturally, I'll be doing plenty of group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Megatron comes in the specialized Shattered Glass packaging, very similar to something like the Studio Series 86 stuff, but it's intentionally got like corners cut out of it at different angles to resemble shattered glass, right? Very jagged and sharp looking. So really cool. It's got that nice purple to pinkish gradient effect here. It's got the Shattered Decepticon symbol, the Shattered Glass logo, Megatron's name, and then some artwork of the character. You get a close-up of the artwork right here, so you can see his face very well. And then you get a more full body shot on this side. And over here, just another full body shot with his name. Turn this around and you get renders of the toy, so you can see his new spaceship-like alt mode, which is just a reconfiguration of the same toy that turns into a tank, which is something I really like. It's very creative in my opinion. And then you can see the robot mode. He takes 18 steps to transform, and the toy even gets some flavor text here. It says, Megatron, the heroic leader of the Decepticons, stands against tyranny and fights to bring peace to all Cybertronians. So he's basically just Optimus Prime in Megatron's body. Like, he's just got Optimus's personality more or less. Maybe a little more jaded. So pretty cool. I dig that inversion there. So now that we've gotten a good look at that packaging, as awesome and unique as it is, we need to take a look at the included comic. So I have that right here. It's got this really gorgeous artwork of Megatron shattering glass, breaking through a glass Decepticon symbol and charging into battle with his fusion cannon. Looking very cool and drawn with a face that makes him look a bit more heroic than the actual toy, because sadly the toy didn't use a remolded head, it's just the Siege one, which is very grumpy and angry looking. Got Pulse on the back, and I'll give you a brief flip through of the comic, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't seen it yet. So pretty cool, really great artwork on it, just like the other ones so far. Okay, now it's time to open the box up. Here's our instruction book for Megatron, and you can see it has the same purple to pink transition that we had on the box. You get your render of Megatron here, showing off some of his new accessories, Shattered Glass logo, the name, all that. And then on the inside, these first 2 lines just show you how to attach all of his accessories out of the box, putting his wings on his back. What's that? That's his, it's just the wings again. Fusion cannon, little cockpit shield thing, and then have him hold his sword. And then we go into the transformation to his spaceship mode, which basically just undoes everything he just did. And then starts transforming him, and about half the transformation is the same as it is for the tank. Biggest difference is what you do with the legs. They just kind of stay outstretched, turn them inwards, and then you slap the new accessories on right here. And there you go, that's the spaceship mode. You can see that they don't give you any sort of idea of what to do with his sword slash tank cannon here. So I don't know if they intend for you to leave it off or if they just didn't bother trying to find a spot for it, but we'll look into that. Here's Megatron's familiar siege tank mode. Now, you won't find steps for this in this Megatron's instructions. They left it out. But him being just, a redeco with added parts, you can easily achieve this. Hopefully you've messed with some version of the Siege Megatron before, so you know how to do this transformation. But I just want to show this off because this doesn't get seen in a whole lot of places. Overall, looks pretty good. They could have left it like this and still would have been a serviceable, Shattered Glass Megatron. Might have been disappointing to people wanting something closer to the original Energon-based one, but still pretty cool. Everything works the same. Turret turns just fine. Now, the question is, what do we do with his extra accessories? See, here's the cockpit/shield right here. Done up in all translucent blue and then heavily painted. And then you get his wings, which are also translucent blue with a little bit of red paint on there. They look a lot like the wingtips of Energon Megatron, which they're supposed to. Now, there are a few places you can put the wings that work out pretty well. He has 2 pairs of 5mm ports along the sides on the treads here, so you can attach them either toward the front or toward the back on the sides. Now, the way that I think looks the best, it's like this, with the wings kind of folded upward and looking more like additional lasers or something that he can fire. I think that looks really good. However, with them sticking up like this, they block the rotation of his turret. So, I would recommend, if you want a more functional alt mode, attaching them out to the side like this. That looks pretty cool too. Kind of reminds me of Revenge of the Fallen Megatron's alt mode. It's like a winged alien tank. And if you prefer, you can move them up toward the front. It's always an option you have. Plug them in here and here. You can do that, but I think that's just a little too forward. Though, now they do look more like weapon emplacements, so maybe that'll work for you. Use them as additional little machine guns or something. Now, the one thing I can't find a good spot for is the cockpit. This, it can go in a few places. It can attach to the end of his cannon barrel and just point up, I guess, which looks absolutely silly and would render his cannon useless. And it can attach to the sides in certain configurations. Most of them don't, they kind of hang down past where his treads go, so it wouldn't make him be able to sit down flush. But you can, if you want to, plug it on like this, and it'll fit pretty well, but then again, it will still block the turret from turning. So unfortunately, if you want something that works and looks halfway decent, you probably just have to leave the cockpit off. It would have been really nice if they designed a way for this to actually go on the tank. I don't know why they couldn't design some kind of notches or something, like under here, to where this can sit on top of the turret, and that looks pretty cool. It could be more up front, like that, looking like an actual cockpit on this alien tank. Or maybe toward the back. There were ways they could have done this, right? You could have put maybe some notches here that go over these bits on his shoulders kind of tightly and just sit there. That would have been really nice, but unfortunately they didn't think to do that. So I would just recommend going without that particular piece. However, attaching the wings still looks pretty good. Alright, now we get our group shot with all 6 versions of Siege Megatron that are currently out. That's an absurd number of recolors for this guy, especially in just the span of a few years. And to make matters worse, there's a 7th and hopefully final one coming out in the form of the Perfect Finish Megatron, which is just something that needs to be more accurate to the Netflix cartoon, which these two already tried, but I guess they weren't good enough. So from left to right, you get your regular Siege Megatron, you get your Selects Combat Megatron, who's based off of Generation 2 Combat Hero Megatron, you get your Animation Colors Megatron from the 35th anniversary. Then we get our first Netflix Megatron, which came in a 3-pack with 2 Battle Masters. A second Netflix Megatron, who came in the 3rd spoiler pack, along with a fossilizer. And he gets a host of new accessories here. And finally, our Shattered Glass incarnation. And you can see there is a really good amount of variety in these guys. The only 2 that look pretty much the same are the 2 Netflix toys, because, well, they pretty much are. Like, the new one is just the old one, but with some very slight color changes and some added accessories. And that's, like, it. Worst deal ever. So you can see they all rock their tank modes pretty well. Our more specialized takes, which would be our G2, Cartoon, and Shattered Glass, they actually forego the really cool little headlight paint that the normal versions of Megatron have, which I think is a shame, but there's various reasons they do that, either for accuracy to, a different toy of Megatron or, cartoon accuracy. So I guess, it works, I suppose. Though I don't think painting the headlights on would hurt anything, because, they fold away in robot mode anyway. Oh well. So yeah, all 6 of these, very solid tank modes, very functional. The turrets, turn all the way around, they roll well, and they just look really cool as some sort of a sci-fi based tank. All right, now it's time to transform Megatron into a spaceship mode. And we're going to start from the tank because they're very similar structurally. Really, you're just readjusting the lower body. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and remove the tank cannon. Get that out of here. If it'll come, jeez. Hold on to it very tight in this version. All right, there you go. So you get that. Then turn the turret 180 degrees, face backwards like this. Now we're gonna undo the legs. So you wanna pop them free from little tabs on the side. Open that up. Roll the legs out to re-extend them. Close that. Straighten it like so. The same thing on this side. Get it out. Rotate the knee down. Straighten, extend, all that stuff. All right. So you're left with this. Looks like, some sort of halfway transformation between the tank and robot modes. Then the next thing you want to do is simply turn the legs inward to where the toes are pointing toward each other. Like that. Let's take our cockpit section. And it's got 2 5mm posts on the edges that you want to plug into the ports on the legs. And then straighten everything out to get something that looks like that. You're fighting me. Come on, get straight. There you go. All right. Then we take our wings, plug them into the back treads here with the longer ends pointing forward. So you can fire from those little wing-mounted guns of his. All right. And this, on its own, is the spaceship mode. And even though it is supposed to be homaging the Energon Megatron's alt mode, it doesn't look very much like it other than the wings. Like, even the cockpit section is markedly different than the one in the Energon toy, which we will look at in a second. Also, I've gone and accidentally flipped these down. Let's fix that. There you go. Looks better now. So, but for what it is, it's pretty cool looking, right? If you just take this as what it is, which is its own unique alt mode, which has some stylings based off of the Energon toy, I think you'd be pretty satisfied with it. It's sturdy enough, it doesn't flop around or anything, and it just kind of works. And it does effectively make this Megatron a triple changer, which is also very awesome. Now, when it comes to the tank cannon, this one's a bit interesting. You can slide this right back in here like you do for the tank mode. However, I would not put it in the way you normally would, which is with the blades facing down, because it creates clearance issues with the cockpit and just kind of pushes it downward. So if you turn it upside down, you will have to push the cockpit down temporarily to get this in. But push it upside down, or turn upside down, sorry. Push it all the way in, like so. And then bring the cockpit back up. You get a pretty darn functional alt mode that now has its cannon attached. So I think it works out pretty well. I think they should have put this in the instructions because it's very easily doable. And it does look like it's actually part of the alt mode, part of the body of the spaceship there. And it also helps homage the tank accessory that comes with Energon Megatron. So I think it works out. I'm a fan of it. Right now, here is the toy that serves as the inspiration for the original Shattered Glass Megatron. This is Energon Megatron. Now, the version that I'm showing you is not the exact mold that formed the basis for the original BotCon incarnation of this character. This is the Superclass toy, which was released here in the States. Over in Japan, they decided not to release this one, and they actually downsized it, almost like perfect recreation, but downsized to an Ultra class, which I guess it'd be about, the size of a Voyager or so nowadays, maybe a small leader. And then the guys at Fun Publications took that version and gave it a new head, new colors, and made it Shattered Glass Megatron. But this will still give you a very, very good idea of where that inspiration comes from. Now, like I said, this new toy is based much less on the Energon design because it has to be a retool of a more current toy, right? They're not going to go way, way back in the catalog for a rather obscure subline. At least not these days. I mean, they used to. Remember Universe, when it pulled things from like every generation of Transformers toys that have been around up to that point? But those days seem to be behind us. They really only want to focus on, everything War for Seibertron and onward, with some very small exceptions for Prime Wars stuff. So yeah, you can see the biggest inspiration, like I said, are the wingtips. You see they're recreated from the little gun-barreled wingtips on the original toy. And one thing that I think is a bit of probably unintentional synergy, the Energon toy has this tank drone or tank weapon that is just a reference to this Megatron's original alt mode from Armada, and it plugs onto the top here and forms basically a big cannon for the spaceship. So you can kind of recreate that here if you want to attach the tank cannon on top of this guy. And again, what is probably some unintentional synergy, there is kind of some spiritual consistency between these two, because this Megatron was a spaceship that had a tank for a weapon. This Megatron is the spaceship and the tank all in one, right? So they kind of just took this and then made both alt modes the character, not one of them just being an accessory. Again, probably not intentional, but it works out that way, and I think it is a cool little way of carrying the original concept forward. Plus, this toy is just awesome. Look how big this is. This would not be a leader class today. They would sell this at like commander prices, I'm sure, because they just don't make them this big anymore. Right now we have the base robot mode for this Megatron. So, as is right now, he's just a recolored Siege Megatron. And I will say the colors are fantastic. They really nailed them. And interestingly, they use a lot of matte black paint on this guy. You can see it here on his shoulders, on the knees. I like it. Oh, it's on the helmet too. It gives him a very different look. They don't use a whole lot of matte paint on Transformers. And then to contrast that, he gets this very metallic blue, which is used on the end of his cannon. It's used up here on his shoulder kibble, and then even his eyes. Now, I don't think it was the best choice for his eyes because these little slits of blue don't show up very well against that black brow ridge and helmet. So it may be kind of hard to see his eyes in some lights, but it's still a nice color. He even gets a little bit of silver here, which I think that might be like the only silver on the whole toy, like just in that one spot. So that's interesting. Yellow around the torso area, and then a very prominent Heroic Decepticon symbol on the chest. So just as is, he's very cool. And even though I would have been disappointed if this was all we got for our Shattered Glass Megatron, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world because he still looks great. But of course, he comes with all sorts of extra stuff to spruce him up. So let's go ahead and attach that stuff now. The wings, you want to attach with the longer point facing up and the red markings facing forward. And you just put them on his treads, though they're going on the back, so you're going to utilize this peg, which does give them the ability to kind of pivot around a little bit. Give him some more emotional depth, I suppose. Kind of like how Prime Starscream, his wings would like droop when he was sad. Give him this like kind of sad puppy effect, which is kind of funny. All right, so you get the back wings here. And then the ship cockpit becomes like a bladed battle shield. So you're going to utilize the middle 5mm peg to go onto his forearm. Now be careful because this is clear plastic and it's a pretty tight fit. So don't put too much force on it if you can help it. All right, so you get all that. And then the finishing touch is giving him his sword, which officially, per the instructions, he holds in this hand, which does make sense because the other hand has a shield. So then you get something that looks like this, and this is a much more beefed up looking version of Megatron, who can also fly now, so that's pretty cool. And I think this design is a really good compromise between their need to use a mold that's readily available and, the desire to want to homage something that came before. I think it works out very, very well for that and makes him probably the most unique version of this Siege Megatron that we've ever received. So I like it. He looks great. His tolerances are great. And even though a lot of people were disappointed that the Shattered Glass toy was not based off of the Kingdom Galvatron mold, I think he still does work for what he is. Though I wouldn't be averse to seeing how, Kingdom Galvatron could be turned into Shattered Glass Megatron, because I'm sure it would look pretty cool. Now here's a group shot I wanted to do with Megatron's arch enemy, the Shattered Glass Optimus Prime, who was part of the Generation Selects 2-pack along with Ratchet. Now, as cool looking as this Optimus is, I mean, his colors are just really evil looking, and they got the great windshield crack going on. There was clearly a lot less effort put into, differentiating this toy from his Earthrise counterpart than there was this Megatron from the Siege version. The Optimus doesn't come with any new parts, no remolding, anything like that, just a straight recolor. Doesn't even come with this trailer. And I think a lot of that is owed to the fact that that 2-pack was really Hasbro dipping their toes into the water of Shattered Glass to see how well it would be received by, the greater populace and not just a very specific part of the fan base. And it must have done well enough because it seems to have spawned this whole Shattered Glass subline, of which Megatron is a part. So I think once they realized that there is a market for this, they said, okay, well, we can invest a little more money now and, give them new heads, new accessories, things like that. So while it is unfortunate that our Shattered Glass Optimus isn't quite as impressively redone as toys like Megatron, we do have him to thank for us getting a Shattered Glass line in the first place. And even though he doesn't do a lot to resemble the original version of the SG character, he is still just a really good toy in of himself, so I'm not complaining too much. Alright, here's another big group shot of all of our Siege Megatron toys. And you can see that most of them are very, very similar in form and function. All but our new guy basically are set up the same way. I'm choosing to put our Combat Megatron's accessory in a different place just to make it more accurate to the G2 toy, though officially he just wields them the same as any other version of this toy. So they do get a bit samey here, right? They just got their fusion cannon and a sword that could be used as a cannon if you want. Plus there's that really ridiculous combined weapon that the Siege instructions showed off, but I'd prefer to just pretend that doesn't exist. So you get a lot of choices here as far as, which one of these do you pick up? Now me personally, I'm obviously, a bit of a completionist. I have all these, though I'm still really not happy about the little thing Netflix pulled where we got basically two of the same Megatron in the same line, but, oh well. But if you're more of a, one per character kind of collector, it'll obviously depend on what your priorities are, whether it's, animation accuracy or what have you. But in my opinion, if you're going that route, you definitely want to pick up our new Shattered Glass toy because he is very different from all the others. And then when it comes to more, G1 Megatrons, if, I'm going on pure value alone, I think I would get the spoiler box one because he just contains the most accessories, right? He has his Matrix Bandolier, he's got the Allspark, which you can see kind of hanging out on his shoulder there. He's got the little blast effects right here. And he has, a very premium paint job, just like the first Netflix toy does. So I would say if you had to just pick one and you want to get the most bang for your buck, I would go with that one. Plus you get a free fossil, well not free, but you get a fossilizer with him. And then when it comes to the Combat Hero Megatron, I would consider him, a separate character or separate, body for the character. So I would personally pick him up too, even though functionally the only thing different about him is color and the retooled head. That for some reason is the head used for minor Megatron in the IDW comics, but isn't used for that here. I don't know whatever happened there. So yeah, my personal recommendation would be Spoiler Pack Netflix Megatron, Combat Megatron, Shattered Glass Megatron. With those three, you should feel pretty satisfied that you get, different takes on a character without getting too repetitive. Now for our final group shot, I want to bring out the Energon Megatron again, as well as Kingdom Galvatron, so we can talk about him and talk about, the choice of mold used. So first, you can see how very heavily inspired Energon Megatron was by the G1 Galvatron design. His legs are meant to, very much evoke the leg design of the original Galvatron. The whole crown helmet thing going on. his shoulder-mounted cannons are shaped like G1 Galvatron's fusion cannon, and then he wears his tank as a pseudo-fusion cannon to emulate, either Galvatron or Megatron's fusion cannon. Plus, you got the chest shape going on. There's a lot of inspiration there. And then this toy would go on to inform the design of this toy, or, more directly, the original Shatterglass Megatron. So then that, left a lot of people begging the question, well, why didn't they use this toy as the basis? And, honestly, I don't know the answer to that, right? Only Hasbro would know, and maybe they'll tell us if somebody asks, I'm not sure. All I can really do is speculate. One possibility is that, our Kingdom Galvatron, despite not being much bigger than Megatron, is a leader class toy, given the added complexity, the extra parts, all that stuff. And Hasbro may not have felt very comfortable in releasing Shatterglass Megatron as a leader, right? Because again, this whole line's very experimental, and it is still them testing the waters a little bit. Honestly, I'm surprised that they are releasing a Shatterglass Jetfire, because, a Commander class goes for buku bucks, and if that doesn't do well, they're going to be left with a lot of expensive toys sitting on shelves. Well, I guess in warehouses, because they're not really on shelves here in the US. So that could be one thing, that they just wanted to keep the price point down and not release such an expensive figure in the line if they could help it. That might have been it. I don't know. Another possibility is that even though Energon Megatron is based very heavily on the Generation 1 Galvatron, it could just be that the Kingdom toy itself doesn't lend itself very well to being modified to resemble this guy, or, what this guy would inspire in the Shatterglass character. Because if we look at him for a second, some of the, most important design aspects of the Shatterglass Megatron toy, the original, is the wings and the shoulder cannons. Now, this guy really doesn't lend himself well to shoulder cannons. He does have a screw hole on the back of his shoulders, which can fit a 5mm port. In fact, you can actually plug his treads in there if you want to, though that hinders the bicep swivel. So it shows that you could plug something in there, but his treads create a bit of a clearance issue. So you'd have to have them, moved out of the way to some capacity. So maybe you could attach some kind of cannons to the back and, have something that resembles these. It's possible. It's wouldn't be a terrible idea to give him a new accessory in place of the gun, the ship gun thing, the rail gun. Give him something that looks more like these, and then, have them to where they can attach. Maybe, it's doable. I think the harder thing would be giving him wings. Because you can see here, he has some connection points. He's got one 5mm port right in the middle, but it's pretty far down. And then he's got these little tabs, though they don't make for a very strong connection. The wings would be, fairly heavy and, weight displacement because they'd be out to the side. I don't think it'd be a great connection. Now, does that mean it couldn't be done? No, not at all. You could have created some kind of apparatus, either plugged in here in the middle and spread out like wings, or, maybe plugged across these in a way that was pretty secure. There were ways you could have done it. So I don't know. Maybe they might have just found it too difficult to make it work, because they may have tried. There may have been some sort of mock-up or something done. They just couldn't really get it to be stable. That's always possible. The other thing to consider, even if you can make the robot mode look good, is the alt mode. How well does Galvatron's cannon alt mode translate into a spaceship? And if I had to guess, if there was a spot where they got hung up trying to make this design work, it's probably the alt mode. I can't really picture it lending itself well to looking anything like, his spaceship mode. So that might have been the nail in the coffin right there, because even though our Megatron here turns into a tank, we see how the tank can be configured to turn into something that actually looks like a spaceship. And I'm not entirely sure they could have pulled off the same thing with Galvatron. Again, at the end of the day, I don't know the answer. I don't know if we ever will know the answer. I would love to see a proof of concept for a Shatterglass Megatron based on this toy, but maybe it just wasn't in the cards. I don't know. And this completes our look at Shatterglass Megatron. Overall, I really like this toy. I love the way it came out. I love the colors they used. I like the added parts that they slapped on him. In the really creative way, they took an existing mold and completely reconfigured the way it transforms to give us a very different alt mode. It's not something you see very often, and it really just gives me the vibes of, like, you know, the designers being kids just having fun with their toys and using their imagination. So I really just think it's a great figure for that. Honestly, it's probably my favorite out of all of the currently revealed Shattered Glass toys. We know through leaks that there seems to be at least one more wave of them coming, so we'll see how those turn out. But I think he's the one that the most amount of effort went into. I mean, they went out of their way to mold 3 brand new accessories, and, like, not tiny ones either, pretty, you know, sizable bits, to make a whole new alt mode for this guy and to, you know, help him stand apart from the other versions of the Siege Megatron mold. So I'm a huge fan of this guy. The paintwork is gorgeous. He just looks like some, you know, heroic character who's, you know, very well armed for battle and ready to take on an evil Optimus Prime. So personally, I recommend you get this guy. I think he's currently sold out on Pulse, but I imagine a restock will happen pretty soon there. Plus, I'm sure other online retailers have them available as well. So just, you know, keep a lookout for them. If you have any interest in the Shattered Glass concept, I think this guy is just kind of a must-have. Of course, that is just my opinion on this toy. Now I want to know what you all think of Megatron. Do you think he's really cool? Do you think that they did put an adequate amount of effort into, you know, making this guy unique and original? Or are you dissatisfied with it? You think it's a cash-in? Or you just really can't stand the fact that it's not a Galvatron retool or recolor? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Transformers Shattered Glass Megatron. And with all that said, I will see you next time.